record. Welcome to week 5 of the Being Your Best You Mindfulness Education series. And once again, this has been made possible by the support of the Joy Fund here at Unity Health Toronto. Now, last week, we built upon the concepts of interoception, this ability to sense what's happening in your body, and upon Dr. Dan Siegel's work of this idea of naming your experience in order to tame it, in order to have a bit more distance from it so that you can actually observe what's happening in you. I also introduced the idea of having an internal family inside of you, which is Dr. Richard Schwartz's internal family systems model. And each week that has passed, we have been gaining more foundations and learning how to be with yourself. So in big mind, rather than being in yourself, caught up in the small worries and the small mind. And the more we do that, as we understand, so if I take the model again, the more we can stay in this receptive, open place, we're really firing the prefrontal cortex and allowing our experience to be integrated, and being able to observe yourself from more of a place of gentleness and curiosity. If you missed the previous sessions, I did post them on YouTube under my name. So Sarah with an H, Kim, all one word, underscore MD, and they'll live there for a while. Now, why don't we begin by taking a quiet pause? Find yourself a resting position where you can allow yourself to be supported, either sitting or standing, or even lying down if that's available to you. See if you can let your limbs rest comfortably, letting go of any holding or tension. And if the tension or the holding won't go, just observe that. No need to try to force anything. Just allow what is going to happen to happen. Take a moment to check in with yourself, with whatever experiences are present, whatever sensations, whatever emotions. Perhaps finding a word or two to name whatever is tugging at your attention without necessarily changing anything. Seeing if you can observe these with gentleness from a place of compassion for yourself. Recognizing that you are a being that experiences many things, carries many experiences with you, but that you have the ability to be with your experience, observe them, rather than be in them. As you connect with yourself, beginning to connect with the room that you're in, the sensations that arise with this shifting awareness, trying to stay with whatever may be arising, even if it may be uncomfortable, remaining, if you can, gentle and accepting, staying present with yourself, for yourself, embracing whatever parts of you that need a moment of care. And as we close this meditation, may you continue to embrace yourself with gentleness, with compassion, and with care. And just taking a breath for yourself as we move to today's lesson. So, in the past weeks, we were exploring the RAIN framework that was discussed in one of the YouTube TED Talks that I sent by Master Heng. And for today, we will be exploring the N of the RAIN framework and how it builds upon the previous lessons of the past 4 weeks. And this will really help us to summarize all that we've learned up till now. So, for review, the RAIN framework is an acronym where R stands for recognize, A is accept, I is investigate, and N is non identify. So, this is essentially describing what we have been starting to practice over the past 4 weeks. Where in week one, we learned that we have the capacity to remain integrated where the prefrontal cortex again is keeping our lid on. So even when too many things are coming into our system, going into fight or flight, and maybe we flip our lid, we do have the ability to put that lid back on. Learning to notice our reactivity and starting to cultivate the ability to choose, to be responsive rather than reactive. And that really is the R for recognize, that moment where you realize you are being reactive. And even if you can't do anything about it in the moment, just being able to recognize it is a step in being able to have a better relationship with your experiences. In week two, we began to develop the skill to create space from our experiences, to rather than being in, to actually realize we can actually sit with ourselves and observe ourselves. And with week three, we learned about naming to taming it. Moving to the A for accepting. So when you name something, it gives you the opportunity to accept that you may be upset, that you may be sad, that you may be angry. It's like an invitation once you are able to just label it. And in week four, we began to learn that we all really think of ourselves in multiples. That you're a different person when you're at work, you're a different person when you're with your family, you're a different person when you may be with your partner or your dog. And really, we started to learn this idea that we carry these families, these internal families with us, and there's a dynamic, there's a maybe a dysfunctional dynamic at times, but there is this dynamic that exists within us when some people dominate a little more than others in terms of who is sort of taking the reins for any given moment. And that allows us to move to the I for investigate. What's happening? Who inside me is being activated? Who inside me is upset? And maybe why? Where is this coming from? What fear is stirring that is creating this reactivity? And so today we move to the end of the RAIN framework, this idea of non identifying, which just further moves to this idea of realizing that when you're having an experience, it isn't necessarily you. So, and what I mean by this is in Buddhist theory, there's often reference to the term of non attachment, of having this separation from your experience. And this again echoes again what we were talking about, this idea of being with. And in the internal family systems model, Dr. Richard Schwartz have just taken it and made it more explicit, where he actually chooses to name your different parts, like your critic, your perfectionist, your sad one, your scared one. And we are, a lot of this is, these different parts have come up over time. And in his model, a lot of these things come up when we are again met in a moment of vulnerability. Rather than with care or empathy, we are met with dismissal or rejection or abandonment or ridicule, humiliation, all these different things, these different wounds that we carry, these different parts of us begin to act. So, if many people, if I make sure everything is right all the time, nobody can criticize me. No, there's not the possibility that I may experience humiliation or that I may experience rejection. And so, as we start to investigate that a little bit more, you begin to be able to separate and say, oh, my perfectionist coming up in me. And you can even have a conversation. It's like, okay, I see what's happening. I see that you need this to happen to ease your anxieties around this possibility that someone may criticize or reject. And I think what would be useful to do with this information in the coming weeks is just to see if you can see it happening and to see how much distance you can get, where you can really start to have a look at yourself or what's coming up. And interestingly, it is usually very tied to the experience of the body, where often as your and I'm going to use the critic because we all carry a critic. We're all probably overachieving individuals who want to do the best we can and present the best side of ourselves. Our critic can be quite mean. And I'm sure your critic that you carry with you is harder on you than probably anyone else, but that critic can also be hard on other people. And it's useful to sometimes talk to your critic and say, well, can you be a little less hard on me today? Or if you're being hard on me today, what are you worried about? What are you worried is going to happen if we don't do it in this way? And so over the coming weeks, experiment with it and see. And you're not crazy for having conversations with yourself. I think there's that worry that maybe I have multiple personality disorder or something like that. But that, again, is a bit blown out of proportion in terms of the prevalence of it in the population through movies and TV shows and things like that. It's very, very rare to have individuals who are so fragmented in that way. But we, again, live in we're very, um, there's a lot of multiplicity in our experience. We're not just one single um, entity because we carry stories of our past. And if you can begin to see that, it allows for a bit more embracing because most of these parts that cause you trouble are actually trying to help you in some way. But the only way they know how to do that, for example, is by criticizing or by being perfectionistic or by going to hide and lie down and just watch TV all day. Like these are different kinds of coping mechanisms that have come up from episodes of the past, and they're not things necessarily to be chased away. It's more just starting to be curious about it and beginning to um, understand that usually these are parts of ourselves that actually need some attention and care. So, with that, I'm just going to lead you through a short closing meditation. So, again, I invite you to find a resting position that is comfortable, either lowering your gaze or softening it, or closing your eyes and beginning to just connect with your breathing, bringing awareness to any sensations in your body, and also understanding if anything did come up for you during this session, because we've spoken about the past, just to extend some gentleness towards yourself, some care, and taking this time to acknowledge that each time you allow a pause, each time you allow a moment of reflection with yourself, it does allow your system a moment of rest, a moment to ground to the present. And each of these little moments build more and more resiliency within you, especially during these times that have been challenging. And if you can thank yourself for taking this time today and extend some gratitude to yourself for how hard you work each and every day. And may you continue today a little more calm, a little more, maybe a little more rested. And I thank you again for attending. And I'll stop the recording now to allow for any questions.